All right. So, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. Now, today, what I want to do is I want to start off by doing a recap of basically writing. I want to go
Hello?
through,
Hello?
I want to go through creative writing, quick recap of that, quick recap of persuasive writing, and then I'll also want to go through interpretive writing as well. So we'll go through those things, have a quick recap of those for today. And then afterwards, if I have time, I might take some questions as well.
And
So,
now,
again, I don't take questions.
hello, anyone there?
And then Imran, I'll ask you to mute.
Hello? No. Hello?
So if you guys do have any questions, send it in the chat. All right. So, let's see. Can you also do reading too? Sure. If there's any reading questions that you'd like to go through, I can go through that, Melina. All right. Okay. So a lot of the questions are about writing, so I will go through, I mean, I'll be going through those soon. Guys, I would ask you not to be sending any of your like specific questions on at the moment, just because it's going to mix up with the other questions. But yeah, so let's get started with writing. All right, let me screen share.
Excuse me, Melvin.
Sorry, boys. I'm not taking questions over the microphone. If you do have questions, send it in the chat. Just like always. All right. Sorry, who's Imran Hyman? Imran? All right. Imran, I'll ask you one last time to stay muted. This is the third time having to ask you, just because there's a lot of background noise coming in and it's disturbing the class as well. All right, so let's start off by looking at the prompts. And there's a few questions that are coming in through the chat, and I'll try to answer those now. All right, 1 second. Okay, so starting off with, let's see a few questions. Okay, so Yug asks, what schools can we get in for GATE? So if you Google online GATE schools, it should show you which schools have GATE entrance. So Ria, your question will be answered soon. And then next, Elma. So Elma asked, what type of writing gives you the best marks? So Elma, basically to answer your question, there isn't any specific writing type that will, automatically give you, top marks. The text type that you should choose should be dependent on which text you are the best at, and then also which one, is best suited for the topic that you have coming up. So for example, I've had a girl in last year's cohort, or I think this year's cohort, she does a fantastic job with poetry. So she can write really, really good poetry. So, for her, poetry is a great text type to do, but that might not be the same for everyone else. For me, I'm pretty good at interpretive texts, so that's what I do. Now, for most kids, Elma, the best text type I've seen is stories, so narrative. And the reason for that is for most of you, you guys have read many stories, you've heard many stories, so it's very easy for you to know what a good story is and what a story's structure is like and things like that. The other text types, for example, poetry or persuasive or interpretive text, it's something that, takes a lot of practice to get good at. But not only that, you don't consume many poetry, right? So like, how many people here, regularly read poetry books, sit down and read poetry or even write poetry? I don't think most of you do, right? But most of you do watch movies, most of you do read books, and those are narratives, those are stories. So that's why, for most people, narratives are the best option.
Thank you.
Let's see. All right. All right, guys, there's a lot of like questions in between everywhere. I'm getting a lot of random different things coming in. So if I skip your question now, I'll just ask you to send it in again later, just because there's just a lot of like messages. I can't obviously get through all of them. All right, so let's start off with, gate writing, just an overall recap of what gate writing is all about. So I'll get Reese. Reese, can you tell me from your understanding what gate writing is all about?
Gate writing
Start
is
off with.
basically looking at like the photo, like the caption, and trying to like understand a unique point of view about like a narrative of something that you could write about it.
Mm-hmm. You're getting there. Let me show you guys something really quickly. To you, right. So just screen share here. Parent presentation. And all right. So let me screen share from my Zoom account. All right. So here is the parent presentation for the 2021 intake, but they pretty much have had the same PowerPoint for a long time. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, if I go down,
Yes.
Yes.
all right, thanks guys. I just need one or two yeses. So if I go all the way down to the different test sections, here we have the writing section. And Kashika, could you please not draw on the screen, please? Thank you. All right. So when you go to communicating ideas in writing, so here's what the Department of Education is saying. It's saying that students are presented with a stimulus and are instructed to present a well-organized, creative, interesting, and original piece of writing. Now, there is a reason why they've underlined the words creative and original piece of writing. It's because they really want to, push the idea or let you guys know that what they're looking for is creativity and originality, right? There's no reason why they would randomly only underline these two words. Then it says there's no restriction on genre or style. So a lot of students keep asking me, right? They keep asking me, Melvin, like, is this going to be a persuasive text or is it going to be a narrative text? What type of text will the exam be? It's not like the actual, it's not like the NAPLAN test where they give you, what do you call it? They give you a text type to write about. For example, in NAPLAN, or they tell you, hey, you should write about persuasive, or you should write about narrative, things like that. But in the GATE exam, it's very broad. As you can see from the image here, this isn't random image of a bicycle at probably, like, you could even say this like probably Fremantle, right? Random bicycle tied up to a pole at Fremantle Beach. Or another topic they would have given is what would have happened if dot 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 dot. And they've again highlighted that it is marked differently to NAPLAN. Now, what does that mean? So what they're suggesting from that is, again, what I'm assuming is they are saying that the NAPLAN test itself is a test to see how good you are at English. For example, for each year level, there's a very clear standards that you need to pass. So for example, year 9, you need to do this, year 7, you need to pass this level of English, year 5, etc., right? So because of that, they're looking for your ability to use the English language. In GATE, they don't care much about that because once again, they're saying that instead to present a well-organized, creative, interesting, and original piece of writing. They're looking for your creativity, right? So with that being said, let's take a look at some of the topics that we've done and how we can look at it. So let me screen share my iPad again. All right. So here we have the topic from mock exam 5. Now, our main goal, as we mentioned, is we need to be creative, original, unique. Right. Looking at this image, we see a series of people all at so we see several people, 6 people sitting at a table. All of them are somewhat sad or moody, or they just seem not so happy with life. And they also look quite old if you look at most of them, right? There's some sort of sadness in their face. And then there's one young lady who's looking up and she's got a balloon and she's glowing. She's very happy. Everyone else, again, seems to, just look look sad and look straight away, straight or elsewhere. Now, if you wrote a story about going to, I don't know, a fun fair or going to a carnival and getting a free balloon and that made you happy, obviously that is not going to be very unique because you're looking at this topic and you're writing just exactly what you see, and that's what almost everyone else will do. This is why in the beginning, when, like for the first 4 years of Loyola, we always used to say, don't write about the literal image. We kept on saying, don't write about the literal image. Now, it's not that because there's anything wrong with writing about what you actually see. It's that it's much more difficult to write about something that's unique or creative if you just write what you see, right? All right. One sec. All right, let me put this guy out. All right. Yeah. So instead, look at this topic and based off what you see, ask yourself, what could it mean? In your life, so for example, I'm going to choose Myra. Myra, looking at this image, is there what sort of thing is taking place in this image? Or what sort of idea do you think you could take from this image? What do you think?
Maybe like
Well, or ask yourself, what do you think these people are feeling, and what do you think? Actually, yes, just start off with these people. What do you think they're feeling?
They're like feeling like upset and all.
Yep, they're feeling like upset and all. Yeah. Why do you think they're upset?
It could be like because maybe like she could like have all the good stuff and stuff.
Sorry.
Like she could have the stuff.
Yeah, because she has this balloon.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's ask Aryan. What do you think, Aryan? What sort of ideas can you take out from this image?
Um, something bad happened, except one person looks at it from a different perspective.
Okay, Ira?
Maybe that the person in the middle holding a balloon is dead and these people are imagining her.
Ooh, that's very interesting. I actually think that's really cool. I wasn't thinking of that, but what I was saying was that what I was asking you was what idea? I'm not telling you like look at this and tell me, what could be happening in this image. Just tell me what sort of ideas can you take out of this? So, Anvika, what do you think?
I think maybe because they're jealous.
Sorry.
Maybe because they're jealous.
Yeah, maybe exactly. Maybe because they're jealous. So, what's the idea that you can take out of that?
That everyone else are jealous about the girl they're having a balloon and having a fun day.
Okay. Because she has things, right? Okay. What else?
Yeah.
Sartak.
Maybe spreading happiness.
Yeah. Spreading happiness. What do you mean by that?
Like the girl might like spread happiness to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. So the one idea that I liked so far is the concept of jealousy, right? So here you have this one person, she's the only one with a balloon, and she is quite happy at that. The reason I don't like the other ideas about, like, for example, like, spreading jealousy or like young people are optimistic, just a bunch of different things like that, is because is anyone else getting joy from her? No, they all just seem quite sad. She's the only one with a balloon, and she's she's quite happy, right? So because of that, you could write about jealousy. So in your life, you could ask yourself, has there been a moment where someone's jealous and they hurt you or they did something bad to you? Or on the flip side, has there been a moment where you could have been happy in your life, but because you had jealousy that you didn't, you were not able to enjoy that moment? So maybe you could write about things like that. Another thing is, this, for example, looks like a light bulb. Or back to someone who was saying, actually, someone was talking earlier about, I believe, who was it? Sorry, Sangamesh, you did say about optimism, right? And Melina talked about grateful. Um, okay, yeah. So those ideas actually, like, I think you can include that. So you could, for example, write about how um, having an idea or working on something or have maybe someone who's inventive, someone who's still optimistic about life, they will always be happy. Like, for example, in life we always heard the quote, like the idea that children are ones who can still dream, and as you get older, adults stop following their dreams and they just become sad about the conditions of life. but then young people are always optimistic and look forward to something else. So that's a very interesting, way to look at this problem, look at this topic. Let's take a look at mock exam number 4 on the topic.
Melvin.
Sorry, my friend, I won't take questions over the microphone. Send it in the chat. If I might go through it, I might not, just because I really can't do 10 things at the same time. So the next topic, here we have a wall full of hourglasses and time falling down. So sorry, the sand falling down. And these are hourglasses indicating the passage of time. Now, if you were to write literally about an hourglass and say, oh, my dad had a magical hourglass where if you were to use it, time would stop moving, or things like that, right? And if you were to write about something like that, it's not going to stand out. The main reason being is most people look at this image and just look at hourglasses and just write straight away about an hourglass. You could then, again, for example, go to a higher level of writing where you just ask, okay, well, it's about time, right? Surely then we could write about time. So you write something about along the lines of, oh yeah, time is here, time is precious. We should use our time carefully, things like that. What, with the writing itself, finding out the idea that time is precious or time is valuable is not that hard. What you need to do is link time is precious to the topic, like make sure it's very clear that you're using this idea, and make sure your problem is mature or big enough where the whole story fits really well there. So for example, if you were to kind of visualize this, the way I like to think of a good story is that it's kind of like a ladder. On one side could be your actually, on one side could be the way you use a topic. So in Loyal's marking key, we call this a topic implementation, right? So it's the ideas you get out of the topic that you see. On the other hand, is on the of the rung of the side of the ladder is the, I guess, maturity of story. And maybe on the other hand, you could add things like, your vocab, your imagery, everything else, like how you present the story, right? Some of you do a fantastic job of this. So for example, there's many students I've read. There's this one boy, I'm not sure if he's in the call with us today. His name's Rahul. He's in my online class. He's got a fantastic vocabulary. He's got a fantastic imagery. He can create really, really beautiful, stories. But one thing I'm getting him to improve on is focusing on the topics itself, and building it up. So for example, Rahul might be at a level 100 at, sorry, level 100 at using the vocabulary, image, and things like that, but he might be like a level, 40 of topic implementation and maybe a level 60 for the maturity. And usually your marks are only as high as your lowest level. So usually, I mean, you could go slightly higher in terms of like, if you have a level of 100, the marker might be tempted to go higher in terms of marks, but you need to have all these sort of things together to write a really good story. So when you come back to this image, or if you think back to yesterday when I talked about keys, right? So yesterday we talked about, actually, if anyone wants to write it down, I'll keep it there. But yesterday, we talked about keys, and I linked keys to soulmates. Now, this is not a very obvious link. This is very rare someone makes that link. Or another story that, a sample story we made before was light bulb, and then we wrote it to elimination of poverty. Right? Again, these are not very obvious links, right? Most people won't make those links. I'm not telling you guys that you guys need to be, the best at making these links all the time. It's okay if you come up with a very like simple idea just based off this image. But what you need to focus on is making sure that the idea that you do come up with, that it has a good problem where it is interesting to follow through, and you're presenting a mature idea, and you're building it up with your good imagery, good structure, good vocab, things like that. So let's take a look at a recap. So that was a recap of narrative writing, right? Narrative writing, remember once again, you look at the topic and you ask yourself, what would be a unique way of tackling this image? So looking at the topic, what would be an idea we can take away from it? So we talked about time is precious. Another one we could talk about, again, is just, linked on time is precious, is talk about life, right? All of us, when we're born, we have a lot of sand at the top. And no matter what we do, we can't really stop the sand or slow down the sand or things like that. The sand will keep falling. And when it reaches the end, that's it. You can't turn back time, right? So that's one thing I thought of. Does anyone else have any other interesting ideas or any, ideas that you thought of for this topic? So Deer has a really cool idea. Awesome, Deer. So Deer talks about, for example, Deer wants to write about climate change. So he says that, this is like climate change or like other problems in the world where there is only a limited time before we need to save it. And because once you go past a certain limit, you can't save it anymore. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Let's see what other ideas have been sent to the chat.
Melvin,
I'm so sorry, my friend. I'm not taking questions over the microphone. I've said it multiple times today. Send it in the chat. Do I know? Let's see. Interesting. Um, Ruben has a good idea. I'm not sure how well he will. I mean, actually, if he implements it, it'd be very nice. So sometimes, right? Here's another trick. Sometimes you don't always need to like have a perfect idea for whatever you see straight away. For example, you might have a quote, a really good quote that you can implement, which will look really good. So, for example, Ruben said, "All good things come to an end." So the other quote that we had earlier was time is precious, and Ruben said, "All good things come to an end." Now, the hard part is linking this to this topic and to a story. So, for example, a lot of times, what students do is they write a story about something, completely different, about maybe two friends meeting at camp. They become very good friends, and at the end, they have to say goodbyes, and they say all good things come to an end. Now, Ruben, I know that all good things come to an end is referring to the hourglass and referring to and it makes sense for the friends at the camp, right, Ruben? Hello? Yeah, okay. Hopefully he's here. Otherwise, I'll just move on. So I can see that. But imagine a marker is sitting at home and he or she has worked during the day and they've come home and they now spent hours marking. You have to make it easy for them to see what you're talking, whatever message you have or whatever idea you have that is obviously linked to the topic. So for example, you should write about, I mean, you should ask yourself, how well can I make that link? Can I, for example, at the end, maybe like the story during the camp, the whole time during the camp leader would flip an hourglass for each activity. And then at the end, Ruben goes up, the character Ruben goes up and then takes the hourglass and puts it on the side. And he says, I really wish that all good things don't come to an end. I really wish we could spend some more time together, my friend. And then, kind of end like that. So that's a very, good way of incorporating the actual hourglass, and it's obvious that it's an important part of the story. But that story is not about an hourglass. the story is about two friends who really are sad about their time together coming to an end. Gurbaz has a really good idea. So Gurbaz says where the sand comes from. So he talks about, soil erosion. Soil erosion. Or where beaches or places where there's sand, the construction industry is just taking sand away and destroying our natural landscape. So, he could write a persuasive text about or a story where he just sees an hourglass and he asks himself, "Oh, Daddy, where does the sand come from?" And the dad sits him down and tells him a story about, or he writes a persuasive text about um, the soil erosion. It's a very interesting story. Um, let's see. Oh, another one was Rahul, the boy I was talking about earlier. He had a very interesting story. He actually wrote a story. So here's an example of what I mean by you can write about the literal text. You just have to be, it's much, much harder to be more unique. So Rahul literally wrote about the hourglass. He literally wrote about the hourglass and and the story was basically the main character of the story was this sand. And the story was a perspective from this, grain of sand and the grain of sand's life story. So the story starts off by saying, the grain of sand feels trapped inside this hourglass, and no matter what, every single day it just goes from one side to the other side to the other side to the other side. And forever it wishes that it could be back on the beach. And then it describes the life at the beach, with the wind, the sea, the birds, the tourists, the children, the sand castles, all the things, and how it really wishes it could be back there. Do you guys see how these are all very interesting ways to look at the same topic? Hello?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 He's gonna
All right. Perfect. So,
Yeah.
so because
The
of
host muted everyone. No, letting
all right. So because of that, these are the different ways you can look at it. Let me just quickly go through the messages. Let's see if there's anything that's standing out straight away. Um, all right, I'm gonna skip through those. So many. Okay. Next, let's recap and take a look at one more topic. So Horain asked at the beginning that mock exam 1 was quite challenging. So let me find mock exam 1, mock 3, mock 4, mock 3, mock 4, mock 3, mock 2, mock. Oh, I don't know if I have that here. Mock exam 1. All right, perfect. So let's take a look at this topic. So I agree with Horain. This is kind of a hard topic. I mean, it's not when you see what it's representing, but before you see what this, before you get that idea, the one thing I want to answer for you guys is, what do you do when you get a topic and you have no idea what you're going to write about, right? What are some tips or tricks that could help you quickly identify different ideas that you could write about? The first thing is I would recommend is, let's just say you look at this topic and you're like, oh, what's going on? There's just a bunch of random doors. I don't know what to do. First thing is break down what you're seeing. Like literally just write down what you see. Okay, I'm seeing a door. I'm seeing a lady. She's talking to another lady and she's not letting her in because she's not even like, coming out. She's standing here. She's not letting her in. And instead of letting her in, this old lady is telling her there's this door, there's this door, there's this door, there's this door. Okay? So here, what we're seeing, again, to recap, is a lady talking to someone else saying that you can't come into my door, but there's so many other doors you can go to. Now, Horain, what do you think that could mean? What's an idea you could get from that?
That somebody isn't well suited for one subject of learning or education and they can go into other different subjects and categories.
Yeah. Okay. One person is not stuck to one subject or category. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good. Anything else? Let's see. Alana, what did you think it was?
Maybe like the person coming out of the door is a parent and she's telling her daughter not to go into that door because it's bad choices.
Yeah. Okay, good, perfect. So like an example of that could be, let's just say, a dad who might smoke cigarettes, right? And he's addicted, but obviously he doesn't want that to happen to his child, so he's telling her, hey, don't do this, you go take another option, right? Or another option would be maybe a mom or dad who, instead of studying in high school, they spend too much time messing around, and now they look to their child and say, hey, don't be like me, you can take these other options. Do you understand? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what you can do. What when I looked at this, and what I thought as well was basically it's just, saying that there's so many different doors in life. So like, have you heard the expression when one door closes, another one opens?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
basically,
Yes.
that's what I was thinking of when I chose this topic, and to put it in. The worst thing you could have done is write an actual story about a lady and another girl, and they're talking about different doors. Like I'm pretty sure I've read, 5 to 10 stories where the whole story was about furniture shopping. They were talking about which color door they want to buy from the store. Do you guys think that's a very creative way of looking at the topic?
No.
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 Absolutely not.
No, definitely not.
No
way.
Not at all.
Definitely not. Not under no circumstance.
Right.
No, a good mark for that.
Okay, I think Melvin gets the point now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
guys.
So, yeah. So that's just a quick recap of creative writing. Now, with creative writing, I want to go through one more thing. And this one, I feel like is really going to improve two things. One, it's going to improve your whole narrative structure, like the structure of your story, but it's also going to help you have a better message or moral, right? And the thing that's going to help you with these are, sorry, the things that is going to help you with this is your problem. So the problem of your within your story, within your story. Now, we've done in this session before. I mean, all these sessions we've done this before in Loyola, but we're just going to go through it again, just because this is a very, very important section. Sorry, this is a very, very important aspect of your writing. So, why is it important to have a good problem? Now, let me tell you about stories and why we have stories. So, in the entire animal kingdom, the only animal that can communicate and share stories is humanity, like humans, right? And that comes because, if you guys have ever gone to the zoo, or if you've ever looked at a dog or a cow or something like that, these animals, as soon as they're born, within a few days, few months, they're like pretty much independent, right? They're able to do things by themselves. Like, have you ever seen a dog go to a school on how to catch, robbers, right? Have you ever seen a horse learn how to ride, how to run, right? But you've definitely seen humans learn how to walk, how to eat, what not to eat, right? I have a dog, and my dog, I've never told my dog, hey, you should not eat this or you should eat that. The dog has an instinct as to what it should eat and what it should not eat. But humans, we're born as pretty much close to a blank slate. Like, yeah, we do have certain instincts, but for example, a baby doesn't know that it's dangerous to go touch fire. Do you guys understand? Yeah. So
Yeah.
because we have to teach, right? We have to teach them. So humans, one of the coolest things about us as a species is that
Yeah.
our knowledge is not limited to individual life, right? For example, everything we know is not limited to the experiences that we have. For example, for a dog, it is. Everything that a dog knows, he learned it within his life, right? He can't learn from the mistakes of his ancestors or things like that. But humans, all of us, can read books that are thousands of years old. We can learn from the mistakes of our ancestors from thousands and thousands of years ago, right? We can learn about the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Persian Empire, the Indus Valley Civilization, thousands and thousands of years of history we can learn from. But more than history, we can learn from stories, right? There's a very famous series of stories you guys must have heard of called Aesop, Aesop's Fables, right? So Aesop's ancient from ancient Greece, and he used to tell stories with morals or messages that have trinkets of wisdom within it, right? So the reason we tell stories is to somehow teach the reader about something we want to teach them, right? So Hurain asked me, do we always need to have a moral or a message? So Hurain, a story that doesn't have a moral or a message is pretty much a weak story or a poor story. Now, there are stories that are successful in this world, that have zero moral or message. So, for example, I come from India. There's so many Indian movies that are like basically pure action. Looking at Hollywood, if you guys watched a Fast and Furious movie, like almost all Fast and Furious movies are just rubbish. They're just garbage movies that are just pure action. Right? There's literally no moral or message behind it. Yeah, sure, Vin Diesel says family's everything and stuff like that, right? But it's a very weak moral or message. But a good story, right? So, Hurain, like, is there what's the oldest story you've heard in your life?
Some about the ancient Greek gods and everything.
Perfect. So, like the ancient Greek mythology, we still hear about them. Now, why do we still hear about them? Because there's truths within those stories that have like passed down generation after generation after generation. Do you understand? So, what makes a good story is a story has a good problem that teaches a message. So, within your stories, you have to ask yourself, how can I make a good problem? There's three things that makes a good problem. So if you haven't done this before, or if you have but you've forgotten, take this down. So rule one, good problem. Does anyone know what this is? Like what type of, like what's funny about that title?
No.
Yes.
I think I do.
No.
Are bad and
Yes, yes.
good.
Yeah.
Problems are
Yeah,
actually problems are
the
bad.
problems are bad, but you're
Yeah,
saying it's
problems-
good, so
problems
that
are
express no
Yeah.
meaning.
Okay. So send it in the chat. What's that called? What is that called? Anyone know? When you have two contrasting words, like deafening silence, or yeah, oxymoron. Good job. An oxymoron. Good. So good problem. How to make a good problem. So rule one, a good problem forces your characters full attention, right? It forces your characters full attention, or capture forces or captures the character's full attention. Now, what does that mean? If you have a small problem or if you have a weak problem, it's something you can ignore. So, for example, like many of you guys, I'm sure, have had something due and you didn't end up, doing it for a long time because it wasn't an urgent problem. But on the other hand, I'm sure that, if you were sitting somewhere and suddenly hot water spilled on your hand, you wouldn't be sitting there saying, oh, I'll still continue to play this video game. I'll come back and play this game later. Sorry, I'll come back and look at my hand later. No, you'll stop playing the video game straight away and you'll go fix your hand first. So good problem is something that, doesn't allow your character to do anything else but focus on the problem. So if you were to think about, your Greek mythologies and things like that, an example of that would be Hercules, right? So I think there's Hercules had this thing called what was it? He had to do like several tasks, right? 3 tasks or 12 tasks, something like that. Does anyone know?
Yes,
3
it's
tasks.
the eight
No,
trials
3.
from the king.
Right. So and what's it's called the labors of Hercules, right? So the labors of Hercules. And it was actually, 12 tasks. So basically, this king, he said that, hey, Hercules, you have to, what was it actually? Let me just see. I think something along the lines of, yeah. So basically, the background is,
I think he had to kill like monsters.
yeah. So what happened? Yeah. So what happened was, Hercules got cursed by a goddess Hera, and who made him go mad, that led to him kill his wife and his children. So Hercules goes to the Oracle of Delphi, where he prayed to the god Apollo for guidance. And Hercules was told by the goddess that if he were to serve this king, he would be able to, be set free or something like that, or forgiven, whatever it is. So the king then gives Hercules these 12 tasks. Now, before we go on to looking at these tasks or anything like that, think about the character Hercules, right? If you don't know anything about Hercules, Hercules is a demigod. His father is Zeus, and Hercules is known to be the strongest man in the world, right? He's known to be extremely strong. Now, even though he's extremely strong, extremely powerful, he must have been very famous. He goes and kills his wife and son. Imagine how much that must have, hurt him, right? So he now is given an opportunity to get past the things he's done wrong. And the ways he can get past is by doing these 12 tasks. Now, is this a problem that is going to capture his full attention?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Yes.
Hercules can't do
Yes.
Yes.
but, come on, guys, come on.
Yes.
Hercules can't do anything but focus on these tasks because he's forever like internally just like, hurt or grieving the death of his family that he killed, right? In a rage of anger. The next thing after rule 1 is rule 2, which says a good problem cannot be solved easily or predictably. So what does that mean? Hercules, in the stories, one of his tasks is to go kill this thing called a Hydra, right? Now, the Hydra is this creature where if you cut one of his heads, 2 heads will grow from that one head, right?
Yeah.
He kills one of the heads and 2 heads will come out of it.
What? That's
Is
weird.
this a problem? Is this a problem that can be solved in a predictable manner?
No.
Oh.
Because how is he supposed,
No.
how is he supposed to,
I.
guys, finish? Mithun, come on, boys. Like, I just need, yes, once, I don't need you guys to spam the microphone. It's disturbing the class. All right. So it's not something that can be solved predictably. Because how can you kill something that keeps regrowing? Like if you cut off one head, 2 heads grow. So he then has to, Melina, do you want to tell us how he solves it?
I think he uses fire.
Good. So as soon as he chops off one of the heads, he uses fire to seal the wound, and then the Hydra can't regrow, right? And then he kills the Hydra. And basically, if you read the 12 labors of Hercules, he has 12 basic, different tasks that are crazy hard that he has to solve them in an unpredictable manner. Then has to, Melina, do you want to tell us how it's solved? Sorry, Mohammed Tariq, if you're watching YouTube, could you, close that because you're in Zoom class now? and also stay muted. All right. Now, finally, the third thing you need to keep in mind for a good problem is it forces your character to grow. So I'm not telling you a good problem has a happy ending or gets solved or anything like that. A good problem, Imran, I'm not sure what you're referring to, but yeah. Okay. So a good problem forces your character to grow. So at the beginning of your story, you have Hercules. He's very powerful. He might be arrogant. He doesn't care about things, and he might be brash. But through the 12 tasks that he has, he grows and becomes a better person. Another example is if any of you have watched the Avenger series, if you guys know Tony Stark or Iron Man starts off as being a very arrogant or, greedy person. Like he makes weapons that kills people, right? He doesn't care about anything but money. But towards the end of the Avenger series, Iron Man is willing to die so that everyone else can survive and everyone else can be saved, right? He used the Infinity Stones to do that. So your problems, whatever problems you have in your story, your character works on these problems, and at the end, they become a better version. I'm not saying that they have to become a perfect person, but they become better and the problem changes them. Do you guys understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So because of that, so these are the three things you need to have a good story. So if you were to think back at, what I promised you at the beginning, I promised you that a good problem has good narrative structure and it has a good message or moral. The reason is, if your problem is good, it's not going to be solved in a predictable manner. So you're going to have to work on your rising action, you get your climax, and then you get your ending. And if your story has a good problem, because it forces the character to grow, it tells us a very good message or moral. Do you guys understand?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. So, these are the different things that I want you to focus on for create narrative writing. Now, I'm going to take the 5-minute break now for everyone. So we start the break at 5:50 p.m. We will come back at 5:55 p.m. I'll ask everyone to stay muted because there's no reason to unmute and speak, especially because I won't be here. I won't be here. I'll be, going to get some water and stretch, so I won't be able to moderate it. If anyone does speak during the break, they will be removed from the call, and someone else from YouTube can join and take their spot. So yeah, guys, I'm not taking any questions during the break. I'll come back at 5 minutes. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Just when we're both not having free time.
All right, let's get started, guys.
Then,
Hmm?
during the break, multiple people turn the microphone off.
Sorry.
During the break, lots of people turn their microphones off, like they unmuted.
Oh, okay. That's okay. All right. So,
Melvin,
okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Let's get started. Sorry, I was just
There's a lot of people swearing in the YouTube chat.
yeah, I was just double checking those. So I made a lot more mods, so they should be good. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get started. Now that we've finished narrative writing, let's take a look at and go through persuasive writing and interpretive writing. As in, I want to tell you guys how you can make a creative persuasive writing or a creative interpretive writing, right? So for example, in narrative, it's fairly obvious. We talked about getting good ideas. But let's quickly go back and look at the ideas that we did, the images that we did, and how they can be good persuasive writings. So starting off with this image, what could this image, symbolize? We already talked about that it's about opportunities. We talked about that it's about different doors, things like that.
A persuasive and why you should see different options before you choose what you want to be.
Potentially. But then, yeah, so, but in a persuasive writing, it's not about like just like generally just giving advice individually. It's mostly just like an essay where you're just saying, hey, this is what I believe in, this is why it's correct, and these are the reasons why. So looking at this, we could talk about, for example, what I would write about if I were looking at this is actually, all right, here's the thing, guys. Remember yesterday I told you guys about whatever you read is never wasted, or whatever knowledge you get is never wasted. So
Yes.
for example, so usually when you think about ideas, the different ideas you get are based off your current circumstances or your current life situation, right? So for example, you know how I told you guys I went to America to study at Stanford University, right? So Stanford is known for all their technology, their startups, people investing in startups, things like that. And one of the things, I noticed while I was there, and I've noticed over time because I'm generally very interested in technology and startups and business and things like that, is that at different times, like the companies that get funded or the companies that grow the fastest are dependent on whatever is the most popular thing at the time. So, for example, when I was in year 11 in 2017, what was really popular was Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So many companies started cryptocurrency companies, things like that. Then there was the metaverse. When Facebook, changed their name to Meta, the most popular thing to do was the metaverse and things like that. And then afterwards, now, the most popular thing to look at or work on is AI. Everyone is working on an AI company, and that's what's getting funded. Now, is that because that's the best companies to fund at any given time? No.
No.
Could be that, whenever you're surrounded by something, that's what you're influenced by. So right now, when I'm looking at this, I'll tell you my perspective. So as a teacher, who's teaching a lot of students, and especially, the demographics of my students in terms of the fact that all of you guys are very ambitious and hardworking, things like that. A lot of you want to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, things like that. Now, there's nothing wrong about professions. So, for example, like I went to law school to be a lawyer, or I went to university and studied business as well. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And same as our teachers. A lot of our teachers are dentists, doctors, things like that. But I might write a persuasive text saying that, what I would write about is I would say, too many smart people are going into medicine. And, too many smart people are going to medicine, engineering, mining, and law, right? There's many fields in the world that could really be, revolutionized if we have enough smart people doing those things. But unfortunately, not enough smart people go try those things, right? Too much of the brain power of humanity is going into the same fields again and again and again. So I wrote a persuasive text. I would have 3 paragraphs talking about 3 reasons why. So reason number 1, I'll say that if all the smart people in the world, for example, in Australia, it's very different to America. So in America, a lot more of the smarter people, they go and study computer science and go be programmers because, you have the whole like Silicon Valley thing in America. But in Australia, all the smart kids, literally, because I went to Perth, right? All the smart kids either go become a doctor or they go become engineers or lawyers to then work in the mining industry, engineers in the mining industry or lawyers for mining companies or companies that work around mining companies, things like that, right? Because that's all we do. Now, that's good because that gives us opportunities and that's what we're really good at. But the sad thing is, where's all the incredible inventions or ideas coming out, right? If all the smartest people in our society are becoming GPs and surgeons, things like that, sure, these are wonderful professions that help people, but wouldn't it be better if they work on problems that need to be solved, right? Wouldn't it be better if they figure out how to reduce global warming, or if they figure out how to create better medicines, or if they work on new in science, things like that, right? So that'd be reason number one, right? Reason number two, I'll say that whenever there's a big shift and people go into different industries, there's a lot more growth and opportunities. So, for example, in America, in after World War II, almost everyone, all the smart people, went to study physics or to become nuclear engineers or work in nuclear areas and things like that. And also they went to work in the military. That's where the opportunities were. Then over time, a lot more people, with the invention of the computer and the accessibility of computer, a lot more people became computer scientists and things like that. So, when more and more smart people go into certain field, like look at how much innovation we have right now, right? Like within the internet or technology space or within, technology and the internet, we have incredible inventions. And it's not because that's where all the inventions could happen. It's just that if you have all the smart people in the world working on those things, it's inevitable that something incredible will come out. Like over the past 20 years, you guys, well, I'm 23 now. So in the past 23 years since I was born, our computers became smaller and smaller and smaller, so small that we can now wear computers on your wrist as an Apple Watch, right? We now have self-driving cars in the form of Teslas, right? We now have high-speed internet almost anywhere in the world, right? All
What?
inventions are because of everyone working on these sort of challenges. So reason number two will be if we have people's focused on other things, for example, like, medicine, not just like, practicing medicine in terms of like, becoming doctors, but into medical research, right? Or maybe into what's another interesting field? Like pretty much anything else, like whether it be physics, whether it be maths, even something small as like construction, right? We've been building buildings over the past, thousands and thousands of years. But if I were to ask you guys, if I were to ask you, are buildings more beautiful now, or were buildings more beautiful in the past? You would almost all of you would say, oh yeah, humans used to build better buildings in the past than now. Because now all the buildings are just big rectangles into the sky. But if you look at old buildings, like if you go to like, the Taj Mahal, or if, in Europe, you go to the Colosseum, you go to the castles of England, there's so much more beautiful structures there. Why do we not build incredible things like that anymore? So, you could write reasons like that. Now, here's my question. How many of you would have thought of writing something like that?
Not
Like
me.
in the chat, I want you guys to tell me what would be an idea that you would write about if you had to do a persuasive topic on this. Send it in the chat.
Excuse me, Melvin. Not to interrupt, but there's also a saying that says, too many chefs spoil the broth. That means like if everyone's doing one thing, it'll be ruined.
Perfect.
So
Now, yeah, exactly right. So I'm not saying like, the persuasive argument is not saying that people shouldn't do those things. It's very important that we have those things, right? Like in Australia, we don't have enough doctors for all the people in the world. Or for example, if you go to like countries like India, India actually does not have enough doctors for all the people who live there. So it's important that we have those people. But the whole persuasive text is just saying that we need to have a lot more people trying different things as well. Yeah, so that's some interesting topics that's coming in. Let's take a look at something else. Looking at this, right? Who was the who was it there who told me that you wanted to write about climate change about this?
Yes.
So Deer had a fantastic idea for Persuasive. He was talking about how like, you know, we're running out of time. There's a moment before everything stops. So we should, stop climate change before it's too late. That's a fantastic way of looking at it. The main thing is when you're doing persuasive writing, the way to be creative is ask yourself, what is a unique idea you can look at and write about? But more importantly, here is a hack. Here is a hack. If you want to be creative in persuasive writing, you have to, I mean, you could, sorry, here's a different way to look at it. An easy way to be creative in persuasive writing is to be a contrarian. Contrarian. What does that mean? A contrarian is someone who goes against the crowd. So if everyone believes in one thing, a contrarian believes in something else. They go against the crowd. So for example, earlier we were talking about medicine. So like the argument that less people should go into like engineering, law, and medicine is a contrarian argument because most of us believe that we should all go and do medicine, right? So like within this, like looking at the topic of time, what do you guys think would be a contrarian argument you can make? Send it in the chat. So we talked about, for example, time is precious. We talked about time is running out. What could be a contrarian argument you could write about? Interesting ideas. This is really, really cool. I love it. I love it. This is really nice. When you guys think outside the box. Wow. All right, you're giving me lots of good ideas. All right. So starting off with let's see. Starting off with Yashwant. Yashwant says you should waste time. Yashwant, do you have any good reasons as to why we should waste time? Yashwant?
You get maybe wasting time.
I'll give you an example, Yashwant. Yashwant, do you have grandparents, Yashwant?
Yes.
Yeah. Are they like are you close with them? Have you talked to them?
They're in my house right now.
Oh, perfect. So approximately how old is your grandparents?
About like 70.
70, right. At 70 years old, are your grandparents still worried or sad about an exam they got low marks in?
No,
Or do they look back and ask, oh, I should have invested in that house or that company or did this or did that? Are they thinking about that?
maybe.
Maybe, right? But what if you were to ask your grandparents, what is the happiest memory of their lives? Would they say things like, "Oh, it's when I got an A plus in my exam," or "It's when I got this much money in my bank account," or things like that? Or would they talk
Not.
about, sorry, go on. Yes.
Not really.
Yeah. What do you think would be the happiest moments in your grandparents' lives? What do you think they are?
Maybe.
Are they near you right now?
Maybe when they got like a gold medal in like a running race.
Do you think that's the happiest moment in your grandparents' life?
Maybe
Or
they.
do you think it was watching you take your first steps as a baby?
Oh,
Do you think the happiest moment in their life was maybe when you called them grandpa for the first time? Right?
yeah.
So do you see what I mean? So like those things, like for example, spending time with a baby, like spending time with baby Yashwant, that's not a very productive use of time, is it? No, right? Spending time with a random, I mean, not a random, obviously you're their grandchild, but spending time with the baby is not a productive time. But it gives them the happiest memories of their life. Another example is a lot of people, like if you go ask your mom and dad, hey, mom and dad, what's your happiest memories from, university? What's your happiest memories from high school? I don't think, I mean, most of your parents, I don't think they'll say, oh, my happiest memories was when I got the top class mark, or when I, got an 80% mark, or I got into this school or that school. I'm pretty sure most of them will say, oh, yeah, like it was a time when all my friends and we just sat at the school park and we just talked for so many hours. Or it was when we played soccer together and then this guy fell and he broke his arm and we were afraid. Like, for example, one of my funniest memories growing up was me and my friends were playing soccer, and one of my friends fell, he broke his arm, and we were all afraid that we'll get in trouble, so we had to like hide him. So we all carried him and snuck him into his house. And because we were so young, we didn't know that breaking your arm was very dangerous. So we just told him to be quiet and hide in his bed. And then after a while, it was too much that we called the ambulance and took him to the hospital. So, I don't sit back and think about, oh yeah, when I got this mark or that mark. So similarly, Yashwant, your argument. So if you were to write a persuasive text, and your persuasive text is, you should waste time, it'll be a very unique take on the topic, and you could literally write about, too many people are too worried about getting top marks or getting this or getting that. Instead, people should waste some time and spend that time with friends and family and make memories that really matter. Do you understand? Do you think if you were to write that, Yashwant, that that'll be a very, like, how many other people do you think will write something like that? Probably zero, right? Awesome. And someone else said, Jace said, it's never too late to change. Awesome. So you look at this and you say, all right, too many people believe that they're stuck in their life and they're never going to succeed or they're never going to fix their problems. But Jace wants to tell us that it's never too late to change. Awesome idea. Um, Joel says, and so many other people said the same thing, that we have too much time in our hands. Awesome, right? So many people say, oh no, I don't have time. I'm busy. I don't have time. But if you ask them to go step by step what they do in their day, you can tell that they're not, working 24/7. They're wasting a lot of time. So like, I'm guilty of this. I spend way too much time just watching, TikTok or like YouTube instead of like doing work. So, Joel, that's a very interesting way of looking at it as well. But to kind of like wrap up, do you guys understand what it means to like look at a persuasive topic and ask yourself, what is that no one else will write about? What is an argument that no one else will think? And an easy way to do that is to be a contrarian. So we'll finish off by looking at one more topic, and then I'll get you guys to send in the chat what would be an idea you would write about for this. Well, be a contrarian argument. So let's take a look at term one. Let's look at mock exam 3. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. Take a look at this image, and by looking at this image, I want you to ask yourself, what would you write about as a contrarian argument? All right, interesting ideas. So, one of the ideas that I got really that I really liked from one of the students. Let me see if I can find it. There are so many messages that came above. Uh, please shout me out. Um, was actually I can't find this person anymore. But if I did say your idea, just tell me in the chat so I can say it was you. Was that it's not always about you, right? It's not always about you. You could write a story about the idea that in today's world, everyone is too focused about, oh yeah, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to be the winner, I need to do this. And the solution is it's not always about you. Like this is this is a good example of like sometimes when parents get mad at me about the Zoom call, right? If I don't choose their child for the questions. Thing is, for every parent, their child is the number one thing. But for me, I care of all of you, right? So it's not always about you. So you could write a persuasive argument saying that our society maybe is focusing too much about ourselves and needs to focus on bigger challenges that's outside of ourselves. So yeah, so that's another way you could stand out. So I'm going to end the writing session there. So with persuasive and narrative. Interpretive, just a quick summary of what that is. Interpretive text is basically, a type of text where you look at a topic and you write your perspective or your interpretation on it. So what does that mean? Remember how in my gate writing I wrote a story, but I basically wrote about keys being soulmates, right? Now, that is not a narrative because there's no characters, there's no problem, there's no rising action, there's no solution. It's not a persuasive because I'm not making an argument saying that this is that. All I'm doing is I'm just looking at the image and I'm taking my interpretation of an image of keys. And I'm writing basically a text with several paragraphs saying, hey, I strongly believe that, keys could symbolize this. Keys could symbolize soulmates. The Greek gods did this, and that's why, people are soulmates, things like that. The reason interpretive texts are some that are good, but I don't really encourage it, is because it's one of those texts where the kids who get it really well, and the kids who don't, it can be very confusing, and it could lead you to write a text with no structure. So to give an example, what does it mean to write an interpretive text? Interpretive texts are basically where you look at the topic and you ask yourself, what could this mean, or what could this mean for me in a sense as well? Because each of you have had very different life experiences. So I'm going to choose, let's say, um, the Tillabine. Tillabine, do you have any siblings?
Yes.
Did you guys both grow up in the same house together?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How old's your sibling?
16.
16. So they're older than you, right? Much older than you. And here's my question, Tillabine. Do you think your sibling, is it a boy or a girl?
Go.
Right. Do you think your sister has had the same perspectives about growing up, about their childhood as you? Or another question would be, Tillabine, is imagine your sister and you look at your mom or dad, right? Will both of you have the same perspectives about them?
Uh, no.
No, because Philippine grew up without you, so she was an only child for a while, so she has different stories about it, right? And then, sorry, not Philippine, your sister grew up as an only child, and she has different stories about growing up. Not only that, but then when you were born, Philippine, she had to share the love between you and her, right? Because you were the baby of the house now. So she has a very different perspective about growing up than you. So each of us, because even if you're living in the same house with the same people and you have the same parents and everything, you all have unique life experiences that could have a different perspective on the way you see things. So for example, I'll give you a very good example of this. What do most of you guys think when you guys see Nike shoes? Send it in the chat. What do most of you see when you see Nike shoes? All right. Expensive,
Repeat that, Melvin.
Jordans, wasting money, just do it, things like that. Awesome. So for me, when I see Nike shoes, so here's a bit of a backstory. So growing up, throughout high school, obviously, I don't have any money, so my parents were the ones buying me shoes, and they would like not buy me like nice expensive shoes. So they would say, "All right, Kmart has cheap shoes. They're like $15 at Kmart. You're wearing that." That's pretty much it. Or the worst thing was they would buy shoes from India, and they're the ugliest shoes from India, some random like things, right? So all I wanted when I went to uni, when I started like tutoring for the first time, is I wanted to buy a pair of Nikes. And the first thing I ever bought with the money I saved up was a pair of Nike shoes, and it was a Nike Air Forces, right? So for me, when I look at Nikes, it reminds me of that story. It reminds me of that experience, right? But for a lot of you, it would be something else. Similarly, another thing would be what else? Like let's just say if you were to look at for example, like some people when they think about oh yeah, for me another funny thing was McDonald's. What do you guys think when you think of McDonald's? What do you guys think of when you see McDonald's?
Do we put it in the chat?
Food.
A chicken.
Food.
Unhealthy.
Just feel like I want to go there.
I just feel like we're further.
All right. Some of you say
Yeah.
junk food, some of you say tasty, some say unhealthy, things like that. Right.
Nom-noms.
Yeah. So for me, like McDonald's, like one fun memory that I have of McDonald's, well, actually, I have a happy memory and a sad memory of McDonald's. The sad memory was so my parents, my mom was actually abroad, so she was the first one to leave India. So I was growing up in India till I was like 6 years old. So, I grew up in like a small little village in India, and like I was used to like eating Indian food. And then when my parents first like took me and my sister to Ireland, that's where I grew up. They they were like, "All right, Melvin's too skinny. We have to make Melvin a bit more chubby. We had to help him grow." So my my dad bought McDonald's burgers, right? He bought us McDonald's burgers. And I kid you not, I hated it so much. Like I really, really hated it. I was like, this tastes disgusting. There's no spice in it. There's no salt in it. This tastes horrible. And especially cheese. I thought cheese was so weird. So that's a funny memory. Sorry, the funny is that's a sad memory or the funny memory.
I feel bad for you.
The positive memory that I have at McDonald's was I'm not sure. Yeah, you guys still have the Happy Meal, right? So when I was growing up, every time I would get like really good grades at the end of the year, if I had a good report, my parents would buy us a Happy Meal. And boy, like I was like it was such a good memory because every year we would like get one or two Happy Meals, like one for each semester, if we did well. So like whenever I think of McDonald's, that's the story I think of. So similarly, each of you guys have your own unique stories, right? Each of you have your own stories. Each of you have your own perspective on the same thing. Like we all look at the same thing and have different stories to tell about it. So a way to like write good interpretive text is you look at a topic, and then you ask yourself, all right, what does this mean to me? What is a unique thing that it means to me? And then based off that, you can Kelly Lamb is such an incredible moderator on YouTube. She's such a legend. All right. So, sorry, what I was saying was that, yeah, so each of you have your own perspectives. So what you can do is looking at the different things, right? So for example, whether it's you, or if it's about the doors, or if it's about time, ask yourself, what could this mean to me? And then you write about the message you want to tell based off your interpretive text. So how would you structure it? Well, you start off by, maybe like starting off by just saying, hey, this is what like this means to me, and then you tell the story, and then you just probably, tell I guess um how the story links to the message, and like what are the messages broad scale, right? The thing is, it's a hard text type to do. That's why I don't really encourage it. But if you do it, you can do really well at it. All right. Now, let's get started on, so that's the three main things I'm going to go through. If you guys have any questions about writing, do send it in the chat now, and I'll answer a few of them, anything that I find important, and then afterwards we'll go through something else.
Can we ask reading too?
Sorry.
Can we ask reading too?
Of course you can.
There's some people messing around in the YouTube chat.
I don't know, but it's just like it's not a priority. There's some mods who will take care of it. Otherwise, the kids who want to focus, they'll just ignore the chat and they'll just watch the video. Because I'm pretty sure if you just go full screen on YouTube and you just watch the live video, it doesn't show up at the chat. So there's no need to worry about it. All right. Yeah, so for example, like, Felix, Vipa, Bella, sorry, Kelly, all of you guys, you can just focus on the class if you want to. Just go full screen and focus on it. And anyone who's messing around, just delete it. Like remove them. All right, so there's some questions in the chat. Let me see if there's anything that's important to go through. All right, what do you only do when you have 3 minutes left and you're only up to the climax of the story? So good point, Isabella. When you're writing the creative section, so when you're doing the creative writing section of your exam, make sure that when you're at the last 5 minutes, you start to end the story. You start to end the story. A finished story is better than an incomplete one most of the time. The reason is, by finishing it, you can clearly show that the problem solved, whether if it's a happy ending or sad ending, doesn't matter, but the problem is addressed, how the character has grown, and you're able to send us a message as well. If you don't finish it, it's not a great story. Like, it's incomplete, so it's harder for us to give good marks for that. Anything else that's interesting that I should answer? What if the marker doesn't know what style of writing you have written? Well, it means that you've done a poor job at your writing. Like, for example, it should be pretty easy to tell a story as a narrative, because as a narrative writing should have a beginning where you introduce the characters, where you introduce a problem, then the rising action when the problem gets worse and worse and worse. And then I guess I'm skipping a few for the sake of time, and then you get to the resolution or the ending where the problem is solved, and then the character learns from those sort of things. Persuasive should have an idea that you're arguing for. You should have 3 reasons and 3 paragraphs where you explain the arguments, and then a recap of those arguments. So it should be pretty easy. Interpretive text is just in between. The only thing I would focus on with interpretive text is making sure that the things you're writing have some sort of structure to it. If there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. Oh, this is a great question. Can you take inspiration from other pieces of writing? Absolutely. You can take inspiration, but don't copy. Do not copy. Because if you're very close to the other story and the marker knows what story you're talking about, they won't give you good marks because they're assuming that you just copied it. And if the task is to have an original piece of writing, then copying doesn't help you do that. All right, that's good. One final tip I'll give you guys is go through the message, the example writings I've sent. And then once you go through the example writings I've sent, you get a good idea of what's a good writing and what's expected of you guys. So you can learn from that as well.
No.
All right. So now that we have 30 minutes left, what I'll do is from yesterday, I'll put everyone's hands down first. So I'll put everyone's hands down first. Lower hand, lower hand, lower hand, hand, lower hand, lower hand. Okay. Anyone who hasn't had any of their questions answered in the past 5 exams, put your hand up. So there was a few people yesterday who I didn't answer. So Jace, I've definitely answered your questions because I remember you as my student. Connie, I've definitely answered your questions before. Keshav, definitely done yours before. Cheyenne, I answered your question yesterday, buddy. Akensha, definitely answered your questions before. Ella, definitely answered your questions before. Janupa, Raghav, Jeev, guys, I've helped all of you guys. Can you guys only put your hands up if I haven't answered any of your questions before? Please, I really want to give it a chance. All right.
How do you put your hand up?
There should be an emoji reaction at the bottom. But again, moving on. So I'll start off with Mir. Mir, which question would you like to do? From which mock exam? Mir? Oh, sorry, Jace Joyson. Apologies. I thought it was Jace Gonzalez. So yeah, Jace Joyson, I can take some of your question today. My bad. Mir. Which question, Mir? All right, Mir, I'll come back to you. Let's go to Yuvraj.
Melvin, can you please do question 12 in quantitative reasoning?
Which exam?
Mock 5.
Mock 5. All right. By the way, you don't like when I get to your turn, you don't necessarily have to just ask me. Like if you want to do a specific question, you can. But if you have a general question, like if you have just a general question that you want me to answer, you can do that as well. So question number 12, this question, this one here.
Yeah, this one.
Okay, I've gone through this one yesterday, you've read, so I would ask you just to watch the video from yesterday because we went through it. Any other question you'd like to do instead?
Can you also do question 24 for abstract reasoning?
24, let's take a look. This one here?
Yes, please.
Okay. So here we have bricks, striped, dotted, brick. Next one should be striped. Now that doesn't really help us because all of them are striped. Pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next, next we have at the top, let's look at the colors. It goes gray, black, white, gray, black, white, gray, black. Next one should be
White and
white.
gray. Yeah, white.
Sorry, and there should be white and gray, right?
Yeah, white and gray, yeah.
Yeah. Now it's just these two left, right?
Yeah.
Right. So let me see who's spamming the microphone. Yeah, Cheyenne, could you stay muted, please, buddy?
Wait, I didn't even know I was actually.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Next, so once we have A, C.
Screen sharing.
Once we
Screen sharing. Yes, someone's screen sharing.
Somebody's sharing their screen.
all right, 1 second. Let me see if I can figure out who it is.
They stopped.
Sorry?
Yeah,
It was
stop.
Saman
Okay.
Patel.
Stop.
It was Haran Patel.
Imran
Yeah,
Patel.
stop.
I'm
Imran.
pretty sure they did it on accident
Imran?
because they admitted
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
pretty sure
let's
they did
focus.
it on
Oh, yeah.
accident. They
Anyway.
had admitted that they did it.
No.
Probably.
Guys, anyways, let's focus. Let's focus. Doesn't matter. So next, Yuvraj, let's focus on the
Yeah.
dot. The dot goes from this image to this image. How much does the dot move?
It moves 0. Doesn't move at all.
From here to here?
It moves +1.
From here to here?
Moves +2.
That should be plus.
3.
Good. So it should go 1, 2, 3 to the bottom left, correct?
Yeah.
And then from there, the color of the dot goes black, white, black, white. Next one should be.
Black. So it's D.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Melvin.
No worries. Next, we have. Oh yeah, back to Mir. Mir, which question would you like to go through? Mir? Mir?
Can I do question for quantitative reasoning for mock exam 5?
Yes, of course you can. This one here.
Yeah.
Okay. Ayesha's grandfather arrived in Sydney from Greece at 10 p.m. on Friday after a 25-hour trip. The flight began at 12 noon on a Thursday, Greece time. What is the time difference between Greece and Sydney? So if he left at 12 on Thursday and the flight is 25 hours long, what time should he have arrived, Mir? What's 12 plus 25? 12 p.m. plus 25.
It's 37.
Sorry?
37.
Is it Friday 1 p.m.?
Yes, it should have been Friday, 1 p.m. Do you guys understand? 1 p.m.
Yes.
Friday.
Yo.
Okay, perfect. Now, but what time does he actually arrive, Mir?
12 noon on a Thursday?
No, what time does he actually arrive here?
10 p.m.
Yeah, 10 p.m.
Friday 10 p.m.
10 p.m. So, Mir, what's the time difference between those two locations then? So if he should have arrived at 1 p.m. on a Friday, but arrived at 10 p.m. instead, what's the time difference?
Is it
9
20?
Sorry? No, it's 9 hours. 1
Oh,
p.m. is 9 hours. And it tells us that Sydney is 9 hours ahead of Greece time. All right. Next, let's see. Who have I not yet? Neha Pamul Lapati. Which question?
Could you wait a second?
Of course. That's 1 second over. I'm kidding. Which question?
Can you do someone else before me? I still need to find my answer sheet.
No worries.
Sorry.
Magati, which question would you like to do?
Question 28, abstract reasoning.
Question 28, abstract reasoning. All right. So for this question, Magati, basically, if you look at all the hearts, if you look across, it starts off with 1 heart, 2 heart, 3 hearts. Do you see that? 2 hearts, 3 hearts, 1 heart, 1 heart, 2 hearts, 3 hearts, 3 hearts, 1 heart, 2 heart. Do you see the pattern?
Yes.
Yeah. So the answer, it should be at the bottom, is that it should go 2 hearts. So this should be 3. This is 2 hearts, this should be 3. This is 1 heart, so this should be 2. You understand?
So it's B.
Yeah, perfect. You understand?
Thank you.
No worries.
Melvin,
Yeah.
somebody keeps on changing the language.
Yeah, you can just ignore that, guys. It's fine. Someone's just
Okay.
waiting. Um, all right. Next, coming back to what was it, Neha? Which question?
Yes. Could you help me with question number 30?
30. All right, let's take a look. Which section?
Abstract reasoning mock exam 5.
Abstract reasoning mock exam 5.
Yes.
All right. This one here, right?
Yes.
All right. So here we have like 4 different things. We have black, we have stripes, and then we have gray. So focusing on the black, from this image to this image, how much does the black move, Neha? Neha?
Oh, sorry. Is it 4?
Yeah, perfect. So, well, is it 4? Well, it could be 4, or what's another way of looking at it?
0
Yes, plus 0. From here to here, how much does it move?
plus 1
From here to here?
plus 2
Perfect. Next one should be?
plus 3.
Good. So 1, 2, 3. So the black should be on the right-hand side, correct?
Correct.
This is not B, but it could. Oh, now, Neha, why did I not cancel out A? Any idea?
Because there's a chance that the black might disappear
Like, no, disappear how? How would it disappear?
by overlapping.
Good. Overlapping. So it could be a chance that black could be here beneath the striped. So let's look at the other ones. Next, stripe. How much does the stripe move, Neha? Plus?
Plus 1.
Then?
Plus 1.
And then?
Plus 1.
And then I should go?
Plus 1.
The answer is?
A.
This one makes sense? Yes, perfect. A. And
Yeah.
we can prove the gray as well, but let's take a look at the gray. How does the gray move? Plus?
2.
Then it goes plus?
1.
Then it goes plus?
2.
Then it goes?
Plus 1.
Perfect. So that's what the answer is?
A.
You understand?
Yes, thank you.
No worries. All right.
Melvin.
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 1 second, guys. 1 second. Is it about this question?
Yes.
All right, send it in the chat. I'll be reading the chat now. So Joel asks me, why isn't it B? Because B doesn't make sense for the black. Black color wouldn't make sense for B. And Momina, after class, I will answer your question. I'll give your dad a call and then I'll go through that, okay? All right, so nobody actually had a question about this by looking at the chat at the moment. So I'm moving on to the next question then. Let's see.
Also, Melvin.
Jace Joyson, what's your question? All right, Ella asked a good question. Ella asked, how do you know which color overlaps? Well, Ella, it could have been that the black overlaps and the black to the top, but then that means that the stripes had to disappear, right? But in all the shapes, stripes existed. Do you understand, Ella?
Yes.
because the stripes is in all four of the things, you have to like realize that it's the stripe that's over the black, not the black over the striped. You understand?
Yes.
Melvin.
My friend sent it in the chat. I'll take a look. So Ella sent it in the chat. That's why I answered her question. All right. Next, who did I say I'll go through again?
Me.
Who's me?
Jay Stuyson.
Hey, so what's your question, buddy?
Could you please do question 16, term 3 mock exam 2023?
Oh my days. Let's see if I can find it. Term 3 mock exam. This one.
Yeah, question 16, quantitative reasoning.
All right. Okay. A bag contains 3 red balls, 2 green balls. 2 balls are drawn at random from the bag at the same time. What is the probability that they are 2 different colors? Okay. So, in total, how many how many balls are there in the bag, Jay?
5.
5. So there's a total of 5 balls. Now, the question is saying you're taking 2 balls at the same time, and what's the probability that they're of 2 different colors? So it has to be that. So in other words, if you were to explain it in English, what should happen? Like instead of asking what's the probability of 2 different colors happening at the same time, what's another way we could ask it? What is the probability that you pick 1 red and 1 green at the same time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So if that's the case, okay, hopefully this makes sense. You do 3 out of 5, which is a probability of getting a red, right?
Yep.
And you pick out the probability of getting a green, which is 2 out of 5, and that'll be 6 out of 25, which is none of the answers. Do you remember what?
You have to remove one from like the one that you took out already, so it has to be 2
First
of them.
one. Well, okay, so if you break it down to, sorry, 2 different ways like that. So the first one, let's just say you chose so you could have 2 options. You could start off with a red one. So if you do that, it'll be 3 out of 5 times 2 out of 4. And then you have to add the other option as well, which is 2 out of 5, so times 3 out of 4. This one you will get 6 out of 20. And then you will get 6 out of 20, and that's a total of 12 out of 20, which is, do any of these options make sense? 3 well, so it could be, yeah, 3 out of 5. So if you divide both sides by 4, you get 3 out of 5. Do you understand?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Next, let's see. Evan, I don't think I've answered any of your questions. Which question would you like to go through?
Excuse me.
Evan?
Can you do question 35 for quantitative reasoning?
35 for quantitative reasoning. Which paper?
Mock 5.
Mock 5. So this question, Evan?
Yeah, that one.
So Evan, we've gone through this question in yesterday's class, so I'll recommend you going back and watching that video. Is there another question you would like to do instead?
No.
No other questions. You got everything else correct.
No, so I'll just check, and until then, can you do like another person?
Okay, I'll come back to you next then.
Okay.
Let's see. Ahad, which question would you like to go through? Okay. In that case, then Manish.
Yeah. Can you do question 15 on quantity?
Say which one, my friend?
Quantity, question 15.
Question 15, quantitative. Well, let's take a look. Imran, could you please stay muted, buddy? It's like the fifth time I'm asking you to stay muted.
Pardon?
So I was just talking to Imran. So 15, this question.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we've gone through this whole question like set yesterday. So I'd recommend you watching that. But is there any other questions you'd like to do instead?
Have you guys did question 32 on quantity?
Sure. Let's take a look. This one. Gone through this yesterday as well. Any other questions you'd like?
Oh, then no.
The reason I'm not repeating the question, by the way, right, is that when you ask a question or when anyone asks a question, it's not just helpful for you, the person asking the question, but it's helpful for everyone else because we're revising that question, right?
Yeah.
So because we've already gone through this question yesterday, I don't want to revise the same question, 3, 4 times. So if you have any other questions, we'll go through that. And
I
then
don't have any.
could you stop messing around with the camera, buddy? Ame? All right, thanks, Ame. All right, which question would you like to do?
I don't have any other questions.
All right, I'll go back to the other person. Who did I ask earlier?
Me,
Who's me?
Havan.
Was it Havan that I went to earlier? I don't think it was
Yeah,
Havan.
it
Was
was. Just pronounce my name.
It was.
Havan, which question would you like to do, buddy?
He's got the Lamborghini.
Can you do 5 abstract?
Yep, no worries. I'll back. This one here, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. So here we have this arrow. It moves. So imagine if it was a four-sided map. It starts off here, goes here, and it goes here. So it's +1, +2. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right. And you'll see the same thing happening here. It goes +1 and it goes +2 to the bottom right. You understand?
Yes.
So the very final row, it goes +1 and it should go +2 to here. You understand?
Yeah.
Perfect. So the answer has to be A or B. Next, we have the love hearts. It goes +1. Sorry, so imagine you have an 8-sided map now. And the reason I know, actually, Havan, do you know why there is an 8-sided map in this question?
No.
It's because it goes in the corners, but it also goes in the sides. Do you understand?
Yeah.
8 sides. So this love heart goes +1, 2 to here, and it goes +1 to here. Do you understand?
Yes.
1, 2 to the top left, and it goes +1 to the middle. And it goes 1, 2 to the bottom right, and it should go +1 to the middle. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The answer is B.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Next, Kalp, which question? Kalp? Kalp. All right. Moving on. Oh, sorry. I just saw your message now. All right. Quantitative mock exam 1. Which question, buddy? Question 35. All right, let's take a look. This question, Kalp. Oh, abstract. Okay. This one.
Is this a different mock exam?
Yeah, this is mock exam 1.
Oh.
All right, so let's take a look. So here we have let's focus on the arrows first. How does the arrows move? So arrows start off here, 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes +2, +1, +2. Next, it should be +1, right? So the answer has to be A or D. Next, if you were to take a look at wherever the arrow is pointing, the arrow is pointing at this dot and it turns black. Then it faces down and it turns black. Then it faces the bottom left, turns black. And the final one, it's pointed here, so it should turn black there. So the answer is A. Do you understand? Help? All right. So that's the final question I'm taking today. I'm ending the class there, guys. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. I'll see you guys tomorrow.